This is the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. We talk all things health, wealth, and community connection. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. This episode is sponsored by me. Yeah, I'm sponsoring this because I want you guys to have access to awesome people that have great ideas that makes your life better, because I just think it's a great way to live. And I know that's why you follow me. And it's also produced by Lighthouse Studios in Bali. If you have a podcast or want to create some content, go to my studio in Bali and get some stuff done. And go to Bali. It's awesome. Now, without further ado, today we have Amanda Bucci. She is an author and a life coach, and she's written a book about the perils of social media, but not just the perils. There's awesome things about it too. And I want to jump into all that. The book is called Followed, and it's the content creator's guide to being seen, facing judgment, and building an authentic personal brand. Thank you, Amanda. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. I was like looking through the book you sent me before we jumped on today, and I was like, oh, there's so many, like the chapter titles are like gold, juicy, 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 juicy. I want to get into all of them, but first, who are you? What do you do? Tell me about yourself.
Great question. I am a person. I'm just kidding. I've been a content creator for just about 10 years now. I got started at the early stages of Instagram and YouTube, where it was very easy to take a picture of your food and gain a couple hundred followers just like that. And it was, the heyday of social media when things were a little bit easier, but so much different than they are today, obviously. So I got started in the fitness industry. I was a YouTuber. I created vlogs, videos talking about my bodybuilding competitions and the food that I was eating and the things that I was experiencing as a person. And I really had such an intimate experience of social media because I shared a lot of who I was and my thoughts and my feelings and my life and my body and my partner and my family. And like I shared so much stuff at a very young age, very immediately. And it was such an interesting thing to gain a lot of followers fairly quickly. I was doing all the right things. I was posting, multiple videos a day. I was cross-pollinating with Instagram and YouTube, and I was doing all of the good marketing stuff. But, watching people comment below your videos and just talk about you, whether it was positive or negative, was really interesting as I was forming my identity as a person in my early 20s. I turned 30 in a month from today, actually. I think July 6th, a month from next week. And cool. I'm excited about that. And it's interesting to kind of look back on the last 10 years of my social media journey, because I had like this fitness chapter with YouTube. And then I, decided that I wanted that fitness chapter to just be a chapter. And when you are in the middle of the journey of life that you're going on, you don't really view the thing that you're doing right now as a chapter. You kind of feel like it's the whole experience. And when you are being followed, it is also very interesting because people just expect that that's going to be the TV show that they get to watch forever. And when you change it, they're like, what? I don't understand what you're doing. And some people are excited about it. And other people are like, I wanted the other show. Like, why aren't you giving me that thing that I've been subscribed to for as long as I have been? So I decided to make a pivot into the business and entrepreneurship space. A lot of people were asking me, how did you build your following? How did you create a fitness business? How did you get brand sponsorships? How do you do all these things? And it was a very kind of natural transition, but it was very jarring for a lot of my audience members. It was like the most intense kind of pivot I've ever done, going from one industry to a completely different industry and talking about completely different things. And as time went on, more entrepreneurship content went really hard in it. And I felt like I had something to prove in a lot of ways, because a lot of people had opinions about whether or not I was even good enough to do that or smart enough, or if I was just lucky because I was a woman with a body that grew a following. And, who am I to talk about business if I don't have a degree, or just because I'm a woman, or whatever the ideas people had were. And
fuck those people.
Yeah. Sorry, who knows what people think, but everyone has their projections, right? But I ended up building a really successful online business coaching business. I have made millions of dollars coaching lots of different people with, different coaching offerings, different group programs, in-person events, podcasts, lots and lots of stuff. And then I went through my spiritual awakening. I went through so much stuff in my personal journey of like self-discovery, self-awareness. What are my patterns? What are the ways that what's my ego and the protection patterns that I have about myself? And then I really realized so much of the way that I wanted to show up on social media was always really about sharing my experiences at the end of the day, whether it was through
Mm.
business or through fitness or through spirituality or through relationships. And it's just a really very unique experience to be a content creator going through multiple stages of your personal life and your journey and having to ask yourself the question, do I bring everybody along for all of this? Do I kind of silo my brand into just this one thing that makes money and makes sense that people can like people can rely on and expect? Or do I like really make changes and pivot and take a different direction? And there's so much that I was just noticing and observing with myself and my clients about, identity and about what people expect of you and about, there's a chapter in my book called Are You Who They Think You Are? And it's this question of like, how
Gold.
do people look at me and perceive me? And is that actually who I am? And it's just it was just such an interesting topic to me that I was like, I have to write a book about this because there's nothing else like out there like it. There's no
Yeah, yeah.
conversation about the lived experience of the content creator. There's a lot about social media and the algorithm and, the big companies that, create the algorithm so you can just like keep being addicted to the platform. And like, it's all very disempowering. And the other options that are out there about social media beyond like how to grow to 1 million followers are how to take off of social media and how to like live social detox and how to, delete Instagram from your life altogether. And there are millions of us that are podcasters, content creators, entrepreneurs, influencers, all people that are just like, we're here, we're doing it, we're in the game.
Yeah.
And there's a whole experience that we are having that no one really talks about. So I wrote a book about it.
It's a wow, thank you for that. That's awesome. Very much needed. That's a whole thing. I saw like a direct correlation while you're saying that in like, wait, your followers expect one thing out of you. Then when you want to do a different thing, they're like, wait, no, you fit in this box in our mind, do the box. And it made me really think of like our families too. So when you shift what you're doing, they're
Yes.
like, no, we know you as this person. And it challenges them. It challenges
Yeah.
their idea of themselves because they're like, wait, if you're not the thing that I think you are, that changes. Wait, does that change the context of our relationship? It changes who you are for me. So I just saw that like stick out. That was quite interesting in that space. But also like we're fluid humans. We're gonna shift. We're gonna change and grow, and we're gonna go on new stages of our life. So it's cool that you went in from, fitness industry to then going into business and spirituality. I think that's a beautiful progression and expansion of who you are. And it's cool to see that grow and then talk about it to help other people. Cause I feel like that's what a lot of what we should be doing is let's handle our own shit. Let's evolve and then help other people along the way. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Thank you for doing that. It's a service worth doing. It's needed,
Yeah. And I love what you said just about how, your family, if they watch you change, they have to start questioning things about themselves. And just think about your audience. Just think about when, like, essentially there's a relationship dynamic between the creator and the consumer, the creator and the audience member. And you don't know how people view you, but if you are really putting yourself out there and you're sharing about topics or you're, kind of this like mainstay in people's day-to-day lives. Like imagine just people scroll, if you make content every day, people that you don't know interact with you
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
And you do something to them. You influence them in some way or another, and they keep following you for some reason or another, and you don't really know what you're representing to them. So when you grow or change or adjust, it forces them to grow and change and adjust and reconsider
Mm-hmm.
their own reality in a certain way as well. And I think that's like a super
Totally.
interesting piece.
Do you know the actual term for that? I just learned it like last year. It's cool.
Tell me.
Parasocial relationships.
Oh yes, yeah, that
Right?
relationship.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. I don't even know you
Yes.
exist, but I mean something to you. Cool.
Yeah.
But also like, wait, whoa. I'm having my own experience over here. So I might not be what you
Yep.
think I am, and that's like an interesting thing to go
Yeah.
through. Also, when you're like, but also it's interesting because you're like, wow, we have this whole relationship I don't even know about. So it's quite interesting how that works. And that's the way that the world we live in today.
Oh
But
yeah.
you also said another thing about like, the comments of people talking about you, because this is hard. And this is a big thing with my coaching clients. They're like, well, what will people think? And the YouTube comments are ruthless. That's another planet.
YouTube is a whole other planet.
What's up with that? Like, okay, Instagram comments are like way more chill because like you can go on their profile. I mean, if you have zero photos and 0 followers, fuck off. Like you don't even,
Yeah.
because you know you're just out there to hate, being a
Yeah.
troll. We'll get into the trolling and hating
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
YouTube is more like, I guess, anonymous, so people are just like, ah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, you don't have to
like
have like a profile behind your YouTube comment. And
no,
also,
no,
I feel like because YouTube is like this video kind of movie platform, I kind of think of
yeah,
YouTube commenters as like movie reviewers
yeah,
or like movie critics in a way almost,
yeah,
where there's
yeah,
like, well, I have something to say about this person who's making this movie in front of
yeah,
me. So
yeah,
for the most part, I can be very kind, and my criticism is that this is great, or my criticism is that I don't like this, or this is dumb, or
yeah,
this is whatever. And it's almost like the comment section is the movie critic section versus like your community. And that's not true for
yeah.
everybody. There's so many people that
No,
are like, I'm a critic, but I agree. I love this. It's so helpful. Thank you. Thank you. But when you create a account on YouTube and you decide to be a commenter of that, I think it's just kind of like a different texture.
people were talking about my nose hair. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah. I've got like your
yo,
socks, your cabinets are open in the background, and like it's just like,
I'm like, I'm like,
you're
well,
watching
I'm
really
sorry.
close.
What do you? What do you? I
Nose
should have.
hair.
I guess I should have trimmed my nose hair. Fuck, man. Like, you think you're missing the point of the video? It was about meditation. Like, true story. Actually, they were like,
Yeah.
I can't stand this guy's fucking nose hair. I'm like, yo, I'm a person.
Okay. Yeah, I'm reading this, and that's that whole conversation of how does that even make you feel? How does that impact you? I know
Yeah,
for myself anyway, there's been so many times where I didn't expect that to happen, especially in the early stages, and the first negative comments I got really caused me to shut down in a certain way,
yeah,
or like question myself, doubt myself. And a lot of people don't want to talk about this, but it can be really dysregulating in a big way, where it has you feel vulnerably exposed, and you're like, oh, I'm very exposed, and people are
yes,
seeing things, and there's no reason that they would you know have to not misinterpret something, or to like just have their own opinion about this thing that I'm sharing. And then it kind of has you question, do I just keep it to myself so I don't have to deal with this? But the thing that I've really learned is, if you want to be a voice and you have something to say, and you want to create content in a big way, or have a bigger platform, have a bigger business, putting yourself out there is kind of the name of the game. So how
yeah.
can I work with the feelings that I have that come up when stuff like that happens?
This is gold. I want to drop into this for sure. And it's
Right.
funny, like us as content creators, and I think a lot of people listening are like wanting to get out there or just watch a bunch of content. So it's very valuable for them to see like what's in it for the people actually getting up there. I was getting ready for this. I'm like, oh, let me change my shirt and look good on camera. And then
Yeah.
I was laughing at this earlier. I was like, I put on cologne for a podcast? Like, wait a minute. And I sprayed and I was
Little
like, you idiot.
dissonance there.
I smell good, everyone listening. I smell really good, okay? But it was
You
like,
feel
what am
it
I
for
doing?
yourself. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
personal
It is.
thing.
It is. Smell does really. You're like, I'm fly today,
Yeah,
and you
I
like
feel
do this. Do
good.
this.
I'm confident. Yeah, but it
But
takes
that's
time.
ridiculous.
But even just saying that, it's like it takes a moment for you to get into the vibe of being confident to speak and to lead a podcast and to host something like this,
Yeah,
or to even
yeah,
for me to come up and promote my book and talk about like, this is the thing that I wrote and it's awesome and you should read it, and this is all of that stuff requires you to find a way to like own your voice and own what you have to say, and create a sense of confidence, like being your own biggest cheerleader. I kind of call it owning your inner legend, like the
mm,
legendary content creator, business owner, like the version of you that's just like an unapologetic mouthpiece for the thing that you're bringing to the world. It's just, you have to be the one. There is no other one but you.
I love this. Give me a playbook. How do we do it? What's your method? How are you becoming your inner legend? What do you do before you psych
Oh,
yourself out? Do you put some Tom Ford cologne on? Probably not. Maybe that's my thing.
yeah, yeah. There's, it's even less about kind of stepping into the confidence that you have inside of you, and more about asking yourself, what makes me shrink, and what is it within me that I am hiding and keeping to myself, or what is it within me that keeps me playing in the same familiar box that I've been playing in. Like, I think the most courageous thing you can do is be seen to be going out of the box of what's expected of you. So, of course, like the kind of whatever kind of meditation stances that you can take, and the, wearing nice clothes and cologne and self-care, like those things are helpful for that moment before, when you really share. But how many steps before that do you have to take before you can even get to the point where you're like, I am going to start a podcast. I am going to make this content. I am going to like really put myself out there every single day. And what do I feel on the inside before I even considered making that choice and like fully deciding? So
Yeah.
it's such a deep process of self-reflection and finding the parts of yourself that you feel like you really doubt or you don't feel like are is worthy, good enough, like you have anything to say, and then questioning, where did those beliefs come from? Where did I get those from? Are those beliefs that are serving me right now? Are those beliefs that are really helping me? And more so building an identity around yourself. Like building a personal brand is really about building this kind of digital identity, right? And it can be tricky because it is kind of taking parts of yourself and amplifying them. And sometimes it can feel like we have to perform like this inauthentic thing. But ultimately, that's not what we have to do. We have to most proudly and loudly express who we truly actually are,
Mm.
not because we're showing up and like doing this for other people, but because we are giving ourselves the best opportunity to be seen and to make an impact that we want to make. So the inner legend identity, and I'm doing a masterclass about this. For anyone that buys 3 books, 3 copies of Followed, you can get access to this masterclass called Own Your Inner Legend.
Oh,
And it's really, it's a lot of this conversation, but just with more practical tips on how to do that and like really creating the identity of the version of you that shows up on social media. And that doesn't mean that you have to be the most confident, the most well expressed, the most this. It just means you have to be the most authentic and the most you, and like just amplifying what is already within you and allowing yourself to like hit some of those edges of your own growth and be seen to be doing that.
that takes courage. I love this. Of course, like that's a big path of growth in general. I like how you started with like shadow work, inner work. Like, hey, look at the
Yeah.
parts of you that don't feel enough. Because I was expecting you to go a different route with that completely. And you're like, look at the parts of you that suck. And I was like, what? Not suck. I'm
Oh.
just joking. But like the parts of you that you don't like. And you went straight
Mhm.
into that because I'm like, oh, you to hype yourself up, you to find your inner legend. And it was like, okay,
It's
what makes
not
you
that.
insecure? And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. We're
you
going
know,
into a
the
different direction.
the most confident people are the ones that own their insecurities.
100%.
They're not scared. They're not insecure. They're the ones that say, yeah, this is something that I am not totally secure about, but I'm leaning into it anyway, or I'm going to be seen and courageously choosing to go and do it anyway, and like find the courage within them and the will and the choice and the empowerment to do it anyway, and to like just be in the arena playing the game, figuring it out. And that is
Totally.
extremely courageous.
I love that. And I feel like that highlights what it was like for me because I was like ruthlessly bullied when I was only like 12 years old,
Mm.
12, 13, 14. This sucked. I was chubby
Yeah.
little
Oh,
kid, braces,
I'm sure
glasses,
that
all that
affected
shit.
your experience of social media too.
It did accept. It showed me after I did a bunch of shadow work and all this stuff was like, actually, I'm just a really loving guy. Like
Yeah.
I just wanted to be validated, but friends, I just wanted friends. And
Yeah.
it was nice because I was always a friendly person. I knew what it was like to be bullied. So I'd never do that to anybody else. I just would make
Mm.
friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And it made me a good drug dealer later because I could just be friends with everybody.
Right.
So it was good for me because I was just like
Yep.
instantly personable. But then later, me getting out there, I see in my message was I just wanted to help people because me growing through what I've been through helped other people. Like, oh, great. If I just share the parts of me that I was like, I just want to be liked, but I also had to level myself up to be someone that was worth liking. I
Yeah.
just wanted to study, and be a different
Yep.
person, especially leaving the dope game and going into spirituality. I was like, I need to be a spiritual person now, which was a whole thing in itself. But
That's a whole other
um, yeah,
trajectory.
it's a whole other thing. But also same
Yes.
thing because it's like, yeah, Gucci bags and like tough guy faces to feathers in your hair and the holsters that you see at Burning Man, those little man
Yes.
purse things. Same thing but different. It's just the same costume but different. But maybe less guns.
different
But
different
the
identity costume.
exactly. But when I started posting around being authentic into what I was going through, people roll with that, and I get it because other people it allows them to actually be like me too. Yeah, I also was there. I also had insecurities. I also had been there. So I feel like anybody listening that wants to further their brand, Amanda's totally right. Showcase what the parts of you were, and I was like, I was a hurt little boy, And then I just had to man up in a way that was actually a secured man, not like toxic masculinity vibes, but just go for the work, go do the work. And then when I showcase that work, people are like, oh, okay, I can do this, me too. I think that's really freeing. So I love that part about you and what you said, because that makes me reflect on mine. What does it mean to be followed? That was one of my questions. I took notes this time.
Yes. What does it mean to be followed?
The title of the book, Followed.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question I hope people really start asking themselves is, what does it mean to me to be followed? But what you're really saying right now, just that conversation about like when I share about my experience, when I share what I went through, when I share my process, or when I own my gifts, when I own my voice, when I own what I have to say, and I really like amplify it in a way that's like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Also, I'm a person that evolves and grows and changes and shifts, and I'm allowed to do that in whatever way that you do that as a content creator. The thing that you said is people raise their hand and they say, oh, me too. And I think that is the coolest thing about social media. I think that social media has drastically changed our society by helping people, so many more people, feel seen and represented in their lived experience. And in that, I think consciousness is evolving at a rapid rate because of social media. Of course, everything has its shadows.
I mean,
everything has
yes.
its darkness.
Yes,
social media is a reflection of humanity, which means it has its full spectrum of light and its full spectrum of dark. It is not to say that it is only a place of light and growth, but that's what consciousness is as well. It is the full duality of all.
Right when you said that, the image of those island boys, those two brothers with the braids, the face tattoos, like, I'm an island boy, like those guys popped into my head. It was like, consciousness is expanding rapture. I'm like, look at these guys though.
And yeah, exactly. Hey. And you'll point to like, and it's still not great in many ways.
No, but you're totally right, because it connected me with amazing teachers. It connected me with new friends like you, like people that I'm like, oh, they're doing awesome stuff and they're fully being them and they're living a cool life. Oh, wow. I want to play too. And so I believe it opens your perspective up to people that you never have access to ever. When am I going to just run into in Austin, Texas someday and be like, oh, hi. Like, it's just like now I could.
Exactly. And it does that. And it also, it creates this opportunity for extreme self-discovery. I talk about in the book, like there's nothing out there in the world that makes you reflect on yourself as often as social media does. And of course it can feel self-absorbed in a way that can feel overwhelming, where you think about yourself a lot. And, a lot of people think like content creators are really self-absorbed. And it's like, well, the truth is we every single day, the name of the game is being consistent. The name of the game is showing up every single day and being a content creator and adding value to other people. You literally have to sit and ask yourself every single day, who am I and what do I want to share? Does this thing that I have to share kind of add to the picture that I'm trying to create that helps other people, that also helps me? And that whole process is like self-discovery every single day. And not just what you create, but also how people interact with it, the way that you observe people interacting with it, the way that you feel about the way that you're observing people interact with it, the way that you feel about yourself while you're doing it. It's just a wild, wild journey of like active, constant self-awareness and growth. And I don't think if I didn't have this, I would absolutely not be where I am today, because every single moment of my content creator, business person, entrepreneurship, whatever I have done journey has prompted me to ask myself so many questions of who am I? What do I want to do? What do I want to create? What are my gifts in the world? How do people perceive me? How do I feel about myself? What's my self-image? And putting language, structure, content, branding, a business to you is really just giving you the opportunity to like more accurately and more clearly put like actual structure to what lives on the inside and put it in the outside world. And it's just a really beautiful thing to be able to do that.
I love this. And I feel like maybe at the start of social media, one funny thing is just like, all the stupid shit that we would have posted when we were like 19, 20. I mean, me, but probably you, all of us, when we're on Facebook, it's just like me Facebook with a bottle. And like,
Yeah.
You know, just this like dumb stuff that we used to do. But now I'm like, this is good marketing material. Like
Yeah, I
circling
know.
back, I'm like, great, look how dumb I was, everybody. And it's like
Yes,
actually
correct.
great because we can integrate our shadows and then like talk about it. I'm literally doing that now. I'm like looking through all
Because we
these stupid
document
photos.
things,
Unfortunately, yes.
unfortunately and fortunately.
Unfortunately now, right? It's so funny how that works. And so that's the part of I want to get into the next point was rewriting your social media narrative.
Yeah.
And I want to jump into that, but that was exactly it. I looked back and I was like, oh, why did I post all this dumb stuff? And
Oh
then
man.
now I'm like, actually, look at this. Look how dumb this was. Like, celebrate it. You know,
I
it's actually
went to a
great.
I went to a bachelorette party a couple weeks ago with one of my friends, and one of the games and activities was go back into Facebook and screenshot your cringiest thing that you posted, and then the bride
Great.
would have to guess who said what. It was so funny.
It's
It was
a
a
good game.
hilarious game. If anyone wants to take that one, it was very funny. It's just like reading
That's
all the things that I was talking about. I was doing a lot of working out, studying for my nursing exams because I went to nursing school, and then I also was complaining about how cold it was because I lived in Rhode Island and I did not like the cold, and then just doing a lot of like lyrics and like
yeah.
a lot of like why like multiple letters, just very silly
Yeah,
high
yeah.
school stuff.
It's so I see that too. I'm like pointless Facebook statuses. Like like
Oh yeah,
complaining about the cold. I'm like, no one cares. Like, why would you just need to be like, it's so cold
I'm so
outside.
cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're like, great service to humanity. You know?
Not a
Super
content
funny how
creator
that.
yet, just a person.
Yeah. For real. So what's up with rewriting your social media narrative? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a process in the book that, of course, so many people will read the book and even hear what I'm saying of like social media is helping humanity expand their consciousness at a rapid rate. And the whatever is in your mind about that of like social media sucks. I hate it here. It is an obligation. It is annoying. I don't like it. I mean, first and foremost, valid. It is hard to be online. It is distracting. It can be distracting. It can be overwhelming. It can be, sometimes when I scroll too much, I'm like, everything is so annoying. Like, this is just so much self-development, so much this, so much whatever industry you're in, anything in too big of a dose can be too much. And my challenge for all content creators is to rewrite your social media narrative into something that you can experience it as positive, because this is going to be a like you spend how many hours a day in your phone. You are going to be both, processing your relationship to doom scrolling and, tech addiction, along with having to constantly sit and observe yourself in the process of like, what do I create? What do I put out there? What do I say? So if you can make the environment as best as you possibly can, it is going to benefit you at the end of the day. So,
Mm.
really being able to rewrite that is just asking yourself, like, what about social media is difficult for me right now? And how can I make that better? So, whether that is needing to take a social media detox or actually just setting some like real boundaries with your audience, your community, and yourself about how you use it, what you say, what you allow, what you don't allow. The way that you kind of experience the whole thing, the content you consume, can you unfollow some stuff that you don't really like anymore or that isn't serving you anymore, or is just really clogging up your feed, and like go follow some like funny shit or animal posts or like art or something that serves your growth or something you want to be educated about. So when you are just mindlessly scrolling, you're at the very least consuming things that are good for your soul and that are benefiting you versus things that are draining your energy.
100%. I love that. And did you say doom scrolling?
Doom scrolling, you don't do
This is
that?
great. No, of course I do that. I just never heard that term. That's hilarious.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna like keep that in my mind. Like next time I'm just like scrolling, I'm
Doom
like,
scrolling.
I have a mantra and I go, you're wasting your time, Aaron. And that's what I say
Yes.
to myself. As soon as I catch myself, I'm like, you have stuff to do. Like you're a busy person. What the fuck are you doing? Like
I catch myself. I'm like, we're not.
stop it.
We're less watching any of this anyway. Why am I doing this motion with my finger?
Right? You're not even watching
We
it.
will
You're
do
just
that.
like
Yeah.
just doing it. It's the same slot machine technology, right? And it's
Yeah,
just like sucking you in.
precisely.
If I'm really trying to be super productive, I grayscale my phone and just
Yeah.
like I tap 3 buttons on the side, it goes gray.
Yep.
I did that,
helps.
you know what I mean? Short keys. And then your phone's boring and it's just
Yeah.
like a tool. And then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, but the colors
Yes.
are so addicting. And you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
And then you realize, so the other thing that I always try, and I just had a session with one of my clients today around getting his branding out there, because he's gold. He's really talented. And
Dope.
he just was like, yeah, but I just go into deep into scrolling and then I don't produce. I'm like, be a creator, not a consumer. Like, just
Mhm.
go and
Mhm.
create, help people. You have really great information. You are
Mhm.
helping people. Look at your testimonials. You kill it. People are having massive transformational, experiences with you. Why are you not sharing that stuff? Give this
Yeah.
information out for free. Then people will want to get more from you. He's like, oh
Mhm.
yeah. I'm like, oh yeah. Be
Yeah,
of
we forget.
service,
It's
right?
easy to
Be of
forget, especially
service.
when you're like stuck in the consumer mode. And
Yeah.
then, it creates this feeling of like everyone else is in the game and I'm out of the game. And I think
Hmm.
that it's super important for content creators to have opportunities to acknowledge and like fully occupy that part of themselves that wants to be out of the game. We all have
Hmm.
it. That hope, that part of ours, like, oh, I wish I could just not be a social media content creator and like not have people know who I am and not have to post all the time. It's this like little part that just, oh, I want to be seen, but I also want to hide. So I always recommend to people like let yourself hide in certain ways that would just kind of like benefit that part of you, like scratching that itch, whether it's taking a 2-day social media detox or a week off, or taking the morning off, or just again setting some boundaries around like your phone usage or your consumption usage. You can even, I've done a couple different things where I just didn't make feed posts and then I just did stories and just kind of created some opportunities to be more in the kind of like Heidi phase of my experience and just let
Okay.
myself have that so I can come
Yeah.
back out again, feel a little bit more recharged. And okay, I got to kind of hide, I got to kind of be in my cocoon, I took a vacation, I did whatever I needed to do, and then I can come back because it really is this constant thing. It's every day, regularly, multiple times a day making content. And no one can do that full time all day, every day. Like, that's not really how it should be done anyway. That's not how humans are designed. So, finding ways to really give yourself the breaks that you need in whatever kind of way is most helpful to you, I think is super important.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Curious about like your spiritual journey. Like that came after rebranding as a coach, or was that before coaching? Like how did that look like for you?
It was kind of in the middle of my coach journey. So I was a fitness coach, business coach. Around that same time that I pivoted from the fitness industry to the business space is when the spiritual awakening happened, where essentially I went through, awakenings tend to happen when you go through major life transitions and you start to question everything about everything you ever knew. And for me, I went through a breakup with someone in my business and also a romantic partner at the same time. And they had
Ooh.
similar patterns, and I noticed that I must have some common denominator if these patterns are so similar. And then I
Mhm.
started to just unpack what what is it about myself that I am not really seeing, that have been unconscious to for a really long time. I started going to therapy. I had done psychedelic journeys with mushrooms and LSD and DMT, and just like really going into the experience of like there's so much information that I feel like I don't have about myself. And my personal experience in, uncovering what my patterns actually are was recognizing that I've had so much of my life as a people pleaser, as a person that almost would have a non-identity, which is like why I'm obsessed with identity conversations. And like I have a book about identity and social media and content creation, is because so much of my life was spent almost suppressing any kind of like strong identity so I can just be more of service to other people and please them, and not really knowing what my own boundaries were, what I needed, like being disconnected from my body and my body's needs, and really like getting myself in these positions where I would just let people kind of walk all over me and take what they needed and wanted from me without me meeting them with, this is me, this is what I want, this is what I need, these are my boundaries.
Mhm.
So, or these are the things that I want to create. And I had a really kind of, I had like a sense of self in the way that I had created a lot of content. Like I had a lot of kind of ease with that. But the moment that it started to turn into something that was like negatively affecting my life is when a lot of the things started to happen and come up. And in that process has been like one of the most beautiful things, because I got to recognize how is that showing up in my experience of social media. Where am I just placating people in a way where I am not actually honoring like what feels true and authentic to me? And I've loved going down the whole journey and pathway of even figuring out what authentic is. Like what does that actually mean? What does it mean for me to really feel like I've hit up against an edge? I like to talk about hitting up against your edges, if you feel like you've hit like a hard no or a hard wall, that is an edge. And that is where you have found information about triggers, patterns, things that feel really overwhelming for you. But that doesn't mean that that's like the edge of who you are. It just means like this is an edgy growth opportunity. But it could also mean this is just a hard no. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with that. And being able to kind of build like the bumpers and the structure of yourself is what my spiritual journey has really been all about, is to kind of figure out like what language, what boundaries, what needs, what desires, what preferences, what words, even figuring out, with my entrepreneurship title and my bio and what do I call myself and how do I describe what I do and how do I put words to things. It's all really been rooted in that. And also on the deeper level, remembering and recognizing that attaching to any kind of identity is also limiting in its own way, and seeing myself as an infinite being and seeing myself as a person that is ever evolving and ever changing and ever growing, and being able to really see that like the benefits of my pattern, like we all have these like benefits, the light and the shadow of all of our patterns, and the benefit of my pattern of people pleasing my way out of really like having a strong sense of self had a negative connotation and experience of it for a while. But the benefit of that was that I can actually have a really easy time letting go of an identity, not so easy, but like letting go of like something that most people would attach so heavily to and be really scared and not have the courage to shift from this identity to this identity, when that would be the natural progression. And a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from my audience and the people that have been following me for a while is, I appreciate being able to see your growth journey, because just watching it has helped me let go of versions of myself that I was really scared to let go of and I was really clinging on to so tightly. But in being able to just watch you and your journey and let go and be misunderstood, be in this experience of people not getting or understanding, and then you just being able to hold your own and say, cool, I'm still doing this, I don't understand it either, but I'm going to keep figuring it out because it feels true to me. That has been so much of the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of people. So that's kind
That's
of
gold.
the cliff notes of my spiritual journey.
I love it. No, it was gold. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a lot of the same stuff from me, like people from my old neighborhood being like, we've watched your journey, because they've been my, Facebook or Instagram friend for a decade now, over a decade. And they're like, wow, like we've seen you grow. Last time we saw you, you were at the club coming out of the bathroom, like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah.
Like just really on a different tip. And now I'm like, hey guys, have you tried ayahuasca? And they're like, very different.
You meditated.
Yeah, exactly. I've done 10 Vipassanas, and I'm like, you guys should try this stuff. And that's a hardcore practice, though. I'm like, nah, I like serving at Vipassanas because you get to like hang out and talk, and there's cookies and coffee.
I've never done one of those.
It's pretty dope. Yeah, it's a good vibe. I think go to one that has like a good center. I've been to ones that like were ghetto. Like one in Sri Lanka used to be a prison. I think it used to be a prison, but they built it like 70% of the way, and they were like, yeah, good enough. It was just like ghetto and next to a highway. So it was that was a challenge, that one. And I was with like a bunch of my friends who were like throwing shoes at each other when no one's looking. Like we were really bad, hiding each other's shoes, like going into each other's rooms, taking each other's shirts and like putting on the shirts, and then like going into the meditation hall. And then you would see someone wearing your shirt. You're like, oh, you can't say anything because you're silent.
It sounds like such a guy friend thing to do.
That was a bropassana. Yeah.
That sounds like a hilarious bropassana. I love that.
It was the funniest vipassana I've ever been on in my whole life. Like one of our friends has really bad eyesight. Somehow. It is entertaining no matter what. There's intensely boring parts of it, but there's also comic like clear comedy that you can't help but laugh. I mean, spirituality is hilarious in general. It's so funny. We have to look at the cosmic jokes of it all. There's such funny shit going on. Especially if you take it too seriously, like, come on, man. But when you like actually look at how funny spirituality is, you can't help.
I love like the spiritual meme creators, because I'm like, thank you for making comedy out of these like hilarious things that we do and think and experience. It's very funny.
Oh, they're great.
Love those people.
I think that's a big part of it all, right? And so it's also what you mentioned around like, I think entrepreneurship is a natural extension of spirituality and vice versa, because to be an entrepreneur, you got to go into yourself, you got to dig deep, you got to overcome things, you need emotional regulation, you need to level up. And then you see that's the same principles of spirituality as you go within. And then when you master yourself spirituality, it's just a, you know, never ending journey, but you're able to create more externally. Whatever your goals are, you're better at it. You're just better at
Yeah.
life. So it's
Yeah.
cool if you're already in business. Now you're just better at life. So you can just do business and help people because
Yeah.
you're just less about, you know, I
Very
need a
true.
Lambo. You can have a Lambo and be cool and be spiritual and, you know, help people. It does not just the
Yes.
Lambo. Then you're just lonely in your
Yeah.
Lambo.
Yeah.
You know?
I always like to think anyone that says being able to put your emotions aside makes you strong. And I think that makes you weak because essentially you don't have any control over your inner experience. And when you learn emotional intelligence and nervous system regulation, you actually are able to observe your emotions instead of react from them. And that gives you a lot more strength and control, even though you're feeling them and expressing them and, you know, moving through the process of them. It's not like you are at the behest of like all of the weird ways in which the repressed emotions will kind of come out in your reactions.
100%. Also, I don't say behest enough.
I usually only say it if I talk about this sentence. Very rarely do I say behest.
I just need to work behest into my vocabulary a little more, you know?
Yes.
Let's just try. I like learning like new words or just like words I rediscover and then like try to fit them into conversation. I just jam them into it.
This is your word of the day.
Behest. Everyone listening, use behest more.
Yes, that's the
what's
one main
the link?
takeaway.
Gold. I want to talk about the link between trauma and social media. That's another chapter of your book that really stuck out to me. Tell me about this, please.
Yes. So the reason that I wanted to add that into the book, it's essentially a chapter outlining like, okay, what is trauma and how does it affect you? And it doesn't go super deep into everything about it because obviously those have to be their own books, and there are many books out there like that. But I really wanted to touch on the fact that your experience of social media is going to really be a reflection of your experience of yourself and your life. So let's just say you've had trauma from being bullied as a kid. And, you know, everyone reacts to their trauma experiences in different ways. And we essentially build these patterns of protection that feel like our personalities, or that, you know, we live with these patterns of behavior and thoughts and feelings for many, many years of our lives, that they protect us from harm and they protect us from the pain of those experiences. And in that, we will, you know, social media is this very vulnerable place. It can be a place where you have to deal with feeling exposed, where you have to deal with feeling potentially rejected or judged. And many of us have trauma from feeling like we expressed ourselves in a certain way, or we literally just existed and it wasn't safe. And that's a very real thing, to feel like being yourself isn't safe, whether you are someone that was bullied, or, you know, you just felt like when you cried as a kid and your parents said be quiet, or you were a victim of hate crimes and something more serious, depending on your race or your religion or your sexuality, and, you know, things that are really happening in the world. So I just wanted to bring to the table the conversation of like, your trauma and the experiences that you've had will impact and affect the way that you can really show up in your bigness and your boldness and your brightness. And I think it would be a disservice to content creators to not talk about that and just say, like, you can just be your loudest, proudest self. And, you know, it's going to be difficult, but just do it, because a lot of people have to really work through a lot deeper things to own their inner legend, to be like share their voice in the way that they know that they can, because so many parts of their body and their nervous system are protecting them from that because of past trauma. So that chapter is really about just reflecting on how the things that you've been through might be impacting your experience of social media, and how you can both work on like reflecting and healing those things, but also creating the potentially necessary boundaries that you can put in place with yourself or with your audience, or with, you know, the way that you interact with social media, so you can protect your peace and protect your sanity and keep moving forward in a way that allows you to feel free and to feel like regulated in your nervous system on a day-to-day basis when you're creating content.
I love this. This is gold. Absolutely. And I think it's important to talk about our trauma in a way that is empowering to ourselves, and like not just like, you know, posting a bunch of it and be like, meh, you know, like that. I'll be like, oh, like that's like so draining to watch. But it's important for people to be cathartic, talk about what's going on. Just, I feel like it's important to be empowering for yourself, and you can use social media kind of like, when you do like the weight loss photos, like it's kind of like, okay, I'm going through this, but like, there's this, I don't know if that totally makes sense, but what it did for
Yeah.
me was I got in a super bad motorcycle accident. Everybody listening has heard about it many times over. Sorry, everyone. But I was like, talked about it. Like, I'm handicapped right now. I was in a wheelchair. I broke both my legs, my pelvis, my elbow, my Achilles, my bladder. I was
Oh,
handicapped for a year. This was like a year,
wow.
like last year, right?
Oh, wow.
A year and a half ago. And
That's
I was like,
extremely traumatic and impacts your
oh,
life
fuck.
quite a bit.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But I was talking about it on social media, and I was just like, still had a sense of humor because I knew this is funny. Like, there's funny parts about this because, like, no matter what, I'm going to make this fun. And it was a huge spiritual upgrade for me. So I'm blessed that it actually happened. And to talk about it helped other people. So they were like also giving them a chance to root for you. But it also was for me cathartic, and for me able to be like, yo, get through this in a way that you'll be proud. And you can put it out there. Just make sure you handle it like in a way that you're going to be proud to share it. So you have to rise up to what you're sharing, or be a somebody for yourself that you'd be proud that other people would see and you would see. And that was really dope. It turned the whole thing into power for me. So I feel like that's where social media is a mirror. So you could be like, yo, I already had content out. I already was, putting stuff out. And now this happened. It's just kind of like, okay, how are you going to roll with it? And it's an interesting
really,
thing.
like,
Social media
forces
for
you
that.
to be accountable to yourself and to showing up as the version of you, like you said, that you could be really proud of. And that's like another answer to what it means to be followed, is when you maybe don't have social media. It's not to say that you wouldn't show up really well in a way that you would make yourself proud, but when you're documenting it, it's just this added layer of like, I am documenting how I'm showing up, and I can be, shitty with myself, or I can be in like my most vulnerable, victim-y kind of energy or thoughts or feelings with myself. But do I want to share that? And also, do I want to be that with me? And it's a great inquiry opportunity to really ask, like, who do I want to be, and how can I make sure I show up as that person? And how do I make sure that like I match, who I am behind the scenes with how I'm showing up on social media. So there's congruence there. But I love that you share that. And I'm sure that was really beautiful for so many people to watch someone that was extremely injured also just add levity and comedy and humor and like lightness and empowerment to your healing process, which must have been so beautiful for so many people watching.
I was conscious of my like viewers and followers and homies experiences watching it, because I'm like, I want to make this at least fun for them too. And so I made it like funny moments out of that, the pure comedy. And I think it's like good to be accountable with yourself on socials, because like the other thing was with businesses. Like I own a business called Karma House, and my other one's Conscious Arts. So I'm like, I can't be a dick. Like I need to be a good dude. I own Karma House. Like, so, it's like
when you like name your brand, you're like, I can't not be this. Like you still honor the parts of yourself that again like might have whatever thoughts and stuff, but really it is a self-accountability tool.
I didn't name it usually a douche house. Like it had to be something like, high level, high vibe. So it's interesting. So I actually like implore like people to aim for your brand and live up to it. Like aim for something that is uplifting, that's in service, that's positive, because then you have to actually back it up too, because you can't be a jerk. You have to. I mean, people do that, but it's helped me be extra accountable, because there's times where I wanted to handle like disputes with employees that were like, before back in the day, it'd be mean, it'd be like, you can't talk to me like that, it'd be turned into a thing. And now I'm like, call your higher self in, be the person you are online, Aaron. Like,
totally.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, if people follow and they know, and then they interact with you, often people will say to me, you're the same as I see you online. And then they also will say there's so many people, or there's some other people that I've met in person that didn't seem the same. And, of course, like you as a content creator want to present your best self. And there's also parts of you that you don't want to always share. So in terms of like that self-accountability and congruency piece, it really is a helpful thing, for your personhood, for like your the goodness of your soul, for your own karma, to be able to show up really well online, and then also match that at home. Whichever one kind of motivates you the most is helpful, but ultimately having both of those things and knowing like, I hope it feels the same, I think is a really powerful tool for just being the person that you actually want to be.
I love that. I think we touched on some really dope points in that space, and it's helpful because more and more of us are content creators, and more of us, people like the younger generation, all want to be content creators.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, right? Like I was seeing this at these schools in Bali that I've been like volunteering at, and like
Yeah.
kids like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it would be like, yeah, sure, a few doctors and pilots and da da da, but like for the kids in like a 20-person class, it's like YouTuber,
Yeah.
and we're like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
That's
thing.
just an option now. Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope
and
they
they're
get my book.
ballers. These kids are making like 20 million a year. 7-year-old kids, unboxing toys, and I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Right, it's crazy. Yeah, just the wealth opportunities available for people. Everyone recognizes it as like a legitimate like wealth building asset now, which I think is a really cool thing for society, to have such a personally empowering space for everyone to form their own thing, create their own audience. If you do the thing, if you create value, you have this asset. You
I
have an
love that.
audience. And
What was
it's like
cool?
so impactful.
Sorry to cut you off. It was
No,
just
yeah.
like, man, and so you're saying you made millions from coaching, and I'm super proud of you already. And we're just new friends. I'm just like, yeah, girl, like that's dope. What was it like, transforming, going into, because you could have gone the other way. I have this theory because I was making good money, not in very legitimate ways as a young kid, and
Yeah.
it's the worst thing that could have happened to me. I was just not, I
Mm-hmm.
was not immature, so you just go crazy.
Not a
And
good
so
positive feedback loop.
no, you're just like, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. Who wants to go to Boracay? And he's just like,
Yeah.
bottles for everyone. And then when you get it and you're already in a centered space like yourself, but your brand blows up, and you're then able to be in a teaching position, and then money's injected into it. That's a lot of egoic race fuel, like rocket fuel
Mm-hmm.
right there. What was it like for that like accelerant into your ego to come in, and how did you deal with it? What was that like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was really interesting because I was kind of in this space of new business coaches who, like in like the female business coach kind of community. I was one of the first people that came from the fitness space to do business coaching, and it was so new that so many of us were like figuring a lot of things out as we went. And when the money piece came in, the ego can either be superior and better than other people, or inferior and, lower than other people. And both of those things are ego, and non-ego and soul is being neither of those things. And, being able to have like a neutral view of yourself and other people, and just being able to see everything for what it actually is. So my personal experience of myself was, it didn't kind of like amplify my ego in the way where I thought I was better than other people, but that is definitely the energy of what it kind of can feel like when you get that much positive validation and like that much energy coming at you. And in the book, I talk about, in the cancel culture and critics section, I talk about the power dynamic between content creators and consumers, and how really it's this very interesting experience of like, there's so much validation coming at you, there's so much money coming at you, that it really can, if you're not careful, create this sense of like, okay, I've got all this power, what do I do with it? And if you're not responsible with it with yourself, and you kind of use your power in ways that aren't helpful or even potentially harmful to other people, you really got to pay attention to that. And there were actually a lot of conversations that got sparked kind of as a result of that. In the business coaching space, there's a couple of videos out there about me of like, I'm a scam artist and I charge too much money for my coaching or my masterminds or whatever. And I was charging the same thing that other people were charging as
Yo,
well.
there's
And
actual video made
oh
about
yeah,
you about this?
there's
Oh,
one
that's
video where
hard to receive.
it's screenshots my whole mastermind sales page, and it goes through like line by line of like, this is ridiculous and this is ridiculous and all these things. And
Oh,
it's fun. It was difficult to be kind of like this
yeah.
poster, me and a few other people, just kind of like this poster for this conversation to get sparked around like, what happens when money and ego comes into the wrong hands. And like, that wasn't my personal experience. I always felt fairly grounded in my ego in that way, but there definitely could have been places where like I took it and like just used the power in the way to kind of consume the power for myself, and to like not really be in integrity with some marketing practices, or various things within the business, and like the kind of relationship between my clients and myself. And I really had to deconstruct a lot of things that I learned about marketing and the things that I learned about copywriting, and really in my spiritual journey as well, and learning about, trauma informed coaching or trauma informed copywriting, or really being able to understand like what's the impact that doing things in a certain way can actually have on someone, and really deconditioning, deconstructing, and decolonizing ways of doing things that put power in like a few people's hands at the very top, versus being able to have a more less hierarchical kind of playing field happening between content creators and consumers. I think it's like a really interesting conversation. And I follow a lot of people that talk about that stuff because I find it really interesting. I'm not the expert of experts at it, but there are a lot of people you can find out there that do talk about that stuff. And sometimes I have been at the kind of like poster for some of those conversations because of, I've been public about what I charge and this and that. And like that can kind of come up in conversation. But at this point, I'm happy to be that kind of avatar for the conversation, because that's what social media is. It's like these people are avatars for these types of conversations to get sparked, and that's important.
Totally. And if you're doing it like you are in it and you're doing it and you're playing at a high level, people are going to talk about you. This is part of the game
Yeah,
for anybody that's
totally.
in social media. It's like, well, if you're
Yeah.
being talked about,
Like,
you're doing
yeah.
something, like you're out there, as long as you're
Mm-hmm.
not like, doing some horrible stuff. But if you're just out there doing
Yeah.
you, it will trigger other people. And that's their unresolved shit. Not always, but there is a lot of that. Like people are gonna like I have that. Well, people just hate on me and talk shit about me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really do anything, but you're like, okay, what's that mean about you? And then it's a thing. That's interesting how that goes through. That must have been hard to have like a whole video put out on the program. I could just see that
Yeah.
that
It's
would be
very
hard to
difficult.
receive. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because that's your work. Like that's you
Yeah.
putting your heart and soul into serving someone and people and your program and getting it out there. It takes so much energy to like put out a product, because it's like, well, people
Mm-hmm.
like this. I hope it's valuable. Like I'm doing it. I'm creating another program, a group coaching program right now. I'm like, I hope people like it. Like, I hope it's good. I hope it doesn't flop. Like, so much of it's art. It's your
Yeah.
art. You're putting
Yeah.
your heart into it. So if it fucks up, you're like, I suck. It
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
it's really triggering. And then so
Yeah.
like, for that, so like, I'm glad that you bounced back out of that, of course, and
Yeah.
thrived, because that
Yeah. And then
shows
you
that
gotta
obviously you're
like
really good
learn
too.
like, okay, is there responsibility that I can take here? Like, is there,
Hmm.
even if this is wrong, like is there something in this that is valid, or that like I could look
Yeah,
at to make the experience of everything better for the people that are receiving it? And that's what I
totally.
try to do with it. I process my feelings. I obviously like people that make content about other people, I would never do that. That's not something I would spend my time doing. I think that has its own
Right.
kind of karma.
Come
It's
on.
okay.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. I can see the kind of societal benefit in talking about other people and like using them as models for this industry and this problem and this and that. It obviously like is a very nuanced conversation, because people are people and we're not always interpreting things accurately. But at the end of the day, I try to do my best to regulate my own nervous system, to be really in integrity with myself, to be really in integrity with like the work that I do and the processes that I have. And a lot of that has come from, having people talk about me and having people reflect a lot on the things that I've done, and having to really check myself of like, okay, people are watching this close. I just have to make sure that I step my shit up and I am not really giving people more or any ammo than they really need to. I can listen to what they're saying and I'm like, okay, I can improve that process or make that better. And I will do those things for myself, and also as a form of like protection of, I recognize that there are people watching, and I will do it to like just have a better process, and also, make sure that there's less people that have less things to say.
That's a great way to look at it. And I totally see the correlation between, like, say, if you go through a breakup and maybe it wasn't all your fault, and maybe you had an ex that
Yeah.
was just like, oh, that's a lot of stuff that's not mine. But also, what did
Right.
I do to cause some,
Totally.
what did I do in that situation? And then just don't do it
Yeah.
next time. So, like,
Yep.
okay, just do better. It's a learning
Very
process.
similar. Yeah.
I think this is a good segue into the haters, trolls, and critics, the online thing.
Yes.
The final chapter I wanted to like point out and talk about. Well, I had today, I put out a post and I got really good engagement. Today was a good one. I looked back at all these cool and crazy photos of myself and highlighted a little bit about what I had been through. And it started off like, yeah, I was a drug dealer. I was addicted to drugs. And then I completely changed my life around and went into personal development, spiritual development. I was teaching yoga, volunteering in prisons, and then, going into entrepreneurship. And this random Indian guy comments, "Why are you boasting being drug addict and going to letter D jail?" And I was just like, oh yeah, it's just like funny. I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
that does not matter. But I had a moment, so I was gonna like respond and like just like a
Right.
scathing response, like,
Yeah.
listen here, da, 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 da.
This is why. Let me
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
myself.
Let me explain to you know, like you can't even comprehend what I literally wrote. That explains it all.
Yeah.
But you know, because your ego gets triggered, like it does, because you're just kind of like, well, fuck you in particular. And I was like, okay. I responded with like, this is why, like actual like response, you
Yeah.
know, and it was more for other people watching that like to see
Yes.
the comment than actually than this random guy whose opinion does not matter to me.
Right.
Like
Right.
you're just some guy, man, and not even someone who's going to be like my people. But okay, you know, literally he's my people. He's Indian, but I mean, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it's funny
Yes.
how like the people come out the woodwork and like, what's your process with these? What do you talk about in the book? You know, do you respond to this stuff? What do you do? How do you deal with haters? How should people do? What's your advice on dealing with the trolls and the haters and critics?
Yeah.
I'll let you.
Oh
I'll
God.
let you run on.
Yeah. This is definitely a big conversation. I have a lot to say about. This is the longest chapter in the book,
Okay,
and
cliff
it
notes.
was longest chapter. So this is like if you're really going through it, if you're really struggling with it, definitely recommend getting the book and reading through because it's not like it's not good enough to say people are just some fat guy in their mom's basement anymore. Like first of
Yeah.
all, that's rude, and second of all, how do you know?
Yeah.
And third of all, it's just a lot. There's a lot more nuance to the way that people interact online that it could be someone that has like a valid opinion and like it's not also good to just say people are just projecting. The
Yeah.
truth is, for the most part, when someone is commenting something about you, they are experiencing a version of you and they don't have the full picture and the full context and the full nuance. And that's going to be kind of inherent to anything on social media, and there's always going to be misunderstanding. So first and foremost, if you can just assume there will be misunderstanding, just ask yourself, what is it within me that feels the need to explain things? Well, first of all, it's okay to feel the need to explain things, but there are going to be different versions of your protection patterns of your ego and your pain and your nervous system that show up. I talk about in the book. There's the flight, fight, fawn, and freeze responses. You said your immediate response was fight, right? It's like, I want to fight this person and like I'm going to do the scathing response, and then you regulated yourself, and then you just decided to do like a more secure, healthy response, which was still a response, maybe had like a twinge of heat to it, but nothing scathing.
Just a little bit.
It's
Just I
okay.
pushed him
A little
into
petty.
like an etherical bush. I just like shoved him into a bush, like, but on the internet. That's kind of what
Right.
happened. Yeah.
Right. So my response is the first kind of time I ever had them. My immediate protection response would be more to fawn, which would be to people please, and I would try to get them on my side, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, they don't understand me, and I would try to get them to like really understand my side, and I would more so like placate in a lot of ways and just put a lot of my energy into like getting people to understand, because I really struggled with feeling misunderstood and really struggled with feeling like people were misjudging my character. So it is important, like you said, when someone comments something that you don't feel like is a reflection of you, people are seeing that in some sort of way. And there are things that you can just let go. Then there are things that you have an emotional experience about for whatever reason. Then you get to decide, how do I want to react to this emotional experience? Do I want to just react? Okay, what is that reaction going to look like for someone who's watching? And obviously, you're not going to have the full context, the full nuance. People aren't going to, always understand, like, oh, Aaron was just triggered and like he's just, a good guy and just was kind of like a dick in this little moment or whatever. And like, not everyone's going to relate to it that way. So you have to really think about, like, how is it going to look if I do respond, if I don't respond? And also, what kind of role model and leader am I trying to be for the people that are here and maybe they're feeling upset by someone's comment and it feels maybe more like a reflection of them as well. So I talk a lot about in the chapter how to really be like a leader for yourself first and how you want to show up in conflict. And I try to teach people to think about it as resolving conflict with anybody, but ultimately a stranger that you don't have trust and intimacy built in with already. But it's someone that is possibly in your community. And if it's not them that are in your community, people in your community are watching you. So it really becomes this like leadership opportunity to see, okay, people are watching, they're going to react to however I react. They see me as this leader in some sort of way. So if I show up poorly, I can't control how people respond and react to how I show up. And like some people might still not like it, but how can I basically, like we've talked about before, show up best for myself? How can I show up for me as like a person in my personal process where I feel emotional, I feel triggered, I feel activated, I feel upset, I feel like I need to explain myself? How can I show up for myself and also show up as the person that I want to be seen as, or at least I want to feel proud of the way that I've showed up? So I really kind of outline like how to do that effectively. Like there's a lot of scripts and a couple of different like exercises to help you figure out like how can I best respond? Do I delete this person? Do I do this? Do I do that? And it's going to be a very personal process, but there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about it. And those are the two kind of biggest questions to ask yourself: is how do I need to show up for me as a person, and how do I want to show up in front of people as a leader?
This is good. I like this. Yeah. My thing is, I'll block them if they're like zero, if they're not even following me and they have like zero photos and zero all that. I'm just like, into the bush you go. And I just shove them.
And I block people
Instagram.
if they're extremely rude and disrespectful.
Oh, hell yeah. That's what I mean. If they're being like, that does not need to be in my field. I don't even need to put energy into this. I'm just keep doing my things. I got stuff to do. They're having the energy and time to like create fake accounts. That's a loser thing to do. Creating videos about other people. Come on, man. Like, that's just like, you should go do a mission that's going to help people. Don't be doing that. But then if it's something that I could actually like kind of win someone over, not in a people pleasing way, but just like show them my perspective and and I'm not going to be a jerk about it and like, scathing response, but actually like come across in a way that they'll be like, all right, fair enough, man. Cool. And then I've gotten clients out of that where they had like said something and it was kind of judgy. And then I just actually talked to them about it on the internet. And then they were like, how do I sign up? I'm like, word. That's a win. Yeah, so I appreciate that. But don't be taking abuse. You don't need to take abuse from anybody, especially random internet people. Into the bush they go. Yes. Thank you so much. We covered like pretty much all the things I wanted to cover today.
Many things. Yeah.
So many things. No, my pleasure. I can't wait to fully read the book. Yeah, thank you. It was fun with you. And I'll put a link, if you can give me one, to the book so people can buy it in the show notes, and also to follow you. I've been following you for a while and I just love what you put out. And thank you, Amanda. It's great to finally meet you and have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And for anyone that's listening, you can go to amandabucci.com/followed and you can find all the links there.
There we go.
Give you the link as well. Thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure. And to everyone listening, have a wonderful, inspired day and be good on the internet to other people, but also be good to yourself. So put out some cool content, save the world in your own special way. And please share this podcast with anybody you think that needs to hear it so we can get this message out there and continue the expansion of the consciousness on the internet and social media for everyone. Have a great day, everybody. See you on the next episode. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. I hope you found it inspiring, entertaining, funny, and also feeling a little bit more present and connected to yourself. Please leave a review and like and subscribe and do all those things. I'd really appreciate that. As well as if you're feeling in a giving mood, this podcast is there for the charities that I love to support. Go to www.aaronbaya.com/charity and get some of those good karma points. This podcast is brought to you by Lighthouse Studios in Bali, as well as Full Reset Coaching. That is my coaching practice. And if you're looking for help in business, inner game impact, and building your legacy to be something you're proud of, your brand, your business, and how you walk the earth and who you impact, and also having the mindset and the heart set to be able to be happy handling it all, I'm here for you. Just DM me. Let's go. Peace out, homies. I'll see you on the next episode.